It's now time to create the main activity. Well, it's already created. We need to edit that. Of course, when we create a new project in Android Studio, it creates the main activity automatically. But the purpose of the main activity in our context of this application is to start the friends list fragment and also build the menu of options for the user to select from. So let's get into that now. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to go into project, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into menu. We're going to edit the default menu because menu underscore main is automatically used by main activity. So what we're going to do there is actually delete that first option. We're going to create a new item. So we're going to type Android icon equals, we're going to use the same thing we did before, Android drawable. We're going to use IC underscore menu search, which is a little question mark, or a little magnifying glass actually. ID, we're going to give ourselves an ID. We're going to call that search. That should be Android underscore ID. So, and show us action, we want to always display this. So show us action equals always. So it's going to be an icon that's always displayed on the screen. And the order for this one is going to be 10. We need a title. We're going to call this title and we're going to call it search. But we're not going to hard code a string. We're going to go back over to there and then use this little button here. So it gets added to our strings.xml automatically, and we're going to call that main underscore search title. So that's one, that's the search icon. And we're also going to do a tools ignore equals app compat resource. That's going to get rid of that error message because we know what's happening there. So we now need to do another one for an add button and also for a delete. And they are actually very similar. So we're going to do copy. The IC menu in this case for add is going to be add, which is like a little circle with a plus in it. We're just going to call it add for our ID. We also want that to always show. We're going to set the category, the ordering category to 100. And the message, the string here, we're going to get rid of the string and we're going to say add title. We're going to say add. But of course, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to do a main add title. That. So that's the add. And then lastly, we're going to create one for deleting the database. So we're going to, for that one, we're going to set that to 50. And we'll call that one delete database, so it's really clear that we're not talking records here. And the title is going to be delete database. There's no icon for this because this is the actual text that we want. And shown as action is going to be never. So in other words, we only want this to pop up and be shown if you physically click on the settings button. And then we also want to do a string resource, and we'll call that main delete database underscore title. So that should be it. We've now got three options. We've got a search option, which is an icon. We've got an add option, which again is an icon, and both of those always will be displayed on the screen. And we've got the delete database, which is only shown in the settings menu. So you need to click on the three dots as the settings options to be able to see that. So that's the XML created. So let's move over to main activity. Expand that out. So what we need to add here, and we'll just open our imports. We're going to change this action bar activity and call that a fragment activity. Fragment activity, I had that there on the screen before. And again, make sure it's the .v4.app, which it is. And you see at the top, the import got added successfully, automatically, which is good. Now I need to go to our uncreate method first. We've got a super. We can keep that super option there, that's fine. And what we'll do next is we'll put a fragment manager, making sure we've chosen the .v4.app1, fragment manager equals get support fragment manager. And that's the mechanism that enables us to control the fragments that we're going to be using on the screen, because we're also going to be using one for search. And again, you can see up here in the imports, we're using the .v4 version, so it's good for older versions of Android as well. So next we need to do an if fragment manager dot find fragment by ID Android. So again, it's not one of our own. Android.r.id.content equals null. Now what Android.r.id.content does, it gives us an ability to find the root element of a view without having to know the name, the type, and the ID. So it's just a quick way of referencing that. It's a good sort of generic way of accessing it. So what we're testing here is we're saying if the root view is null, then we want to invoke it. We want to create something. So what we want to do then is we want to do a friends list fragment. That's the code we created before. We want to invoke and set up a new one. Friends list fragment equals new. Friends list fragment. Then we want to do fragment manager. You want the fragment manager to start this. And you use a command called .begin transaction .add. Then we use our Android.r.id.content again. But then we also pass the friends list fragment, because that's the one we want to work on, then .commit. So we begin the transaction, we create the view essentially, then we commit it so it's put it on screen, so it's ready to go essentially. And that's it, that's all we need to do to get the fragment on screen essentially. Next we need to check our onCreate options menu. I'm just going to change it, even though it's essentially the same, just to show you how I would normally code that. So onCreation's options menu, I'm going to do menu inflator, inflator equals get menu inflator. Inflator dot inflate. So again, we're getting the menu to appear on the screen here. Menu dot menu underscore main, which is our menu that we've defined in this video. We're passing menu, which was passed to this onCreate options menu method. Then we do a return super dot onCreate options menu, and again the menu which was passed. So that's it. So lastly, we need to deal with on options items selected, so that when a particular menu option is selected, we can invoke some code. So we need to put a switch in there. So what we'll do is we'll just delete some of this code. I'll change that actually. I'll do a switch. Like that. I'll just get rid of some of this code there. So switch. The first case will be case r.id dot add, which is our. Now what we'll do, that add name is probably okay, but let's just make it a little bit more obvious as to what it is. We go back to our menu underscore main. We'll call it add record. So we use delete database down there and do a search records, just to make it a little bit clearer. We'll go back to our main activity again. So now if we do an add record, we just know that that's the one we're dealing with. So to add a record, we're just going to use an intent. From this class, and of course, and we're going to be using a class that we haven't written called addActivity.class. Then we'll start the intent. And that will handle the add. And then we'll do a break there. Then a case id.delete database. Then we're going to use our friends dialog again. Friends dialog equals new friends dialog. We need to create a bundle new bundle. args.putString, and remember that it's the friends dialog dot dialog type, and we're going to use friends dialog dot delete underscore database, which hasn't been defined yet, which we'll do in a second. That's why it's in red. So dialog dot set arguments args, and dialog.show. I'm going to show that on the screen. Get support, fragment manager. And we can just pass anything. That's the tag. And we'll just pass, we'll just call it rather, delete database. Doesn't really matter what that is. And that will be our code. Lastly, in the case of searching, r.id.search records. We're just going to do an intent there as well. Intent equals new intent main activity.this, and it will be search activity, which also we haven't created yet. Start activity search. Oops, that needed to be search intent there, because it will complain if we've tried to define something twice. Start activity search intent. And I made a typo there. Start activity intent, that should be. So we've got three things here that we haven't defined. What we'll do is we'll go into Friends dialog and we'll add the code for deleting the database, including that definition. So delete database. The only thing it needs to be is have a different value than the current one, so we'll call that delete database, because if you also set that up and call that delete record, then when we did a search here, it would match the wrong one. So we need to add something here now. We're going to put else if command dot equals delete database. We need to add the code for that. Now the code is very similar, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the code from here down to the bottom and paste that into the next section. So I'm ignoring ID and name because that was only passed to us from the delete record, because we wanted to delete a single record. In this case we didn't get any arguments other than the command type, so I'm going to paste that into there like so. And the main thing we need to change is here, which is the actual message. We're going to put are you sure you wish to delete the entire database. And while we're here, we'll put a question mark up there, which we forgot to do because it was a question. Now the URI is going to be slightly different because we haven't got a parameter, so that we're going to use URI table, because we haven't got any parameters to pass. And the delete is going to be exactly the same, and that's because if you recall, when we created the original delete method in the content provider, we're looking to see whether there's a parameter of an ID, and if there's not, then we actually call the code to delete the entire database. So consequently, we don't really need to do anything else. Everything else can remain the same. Essentially, after we finish, we're going to go back to the main activity using the flag underscore activity underscore clear underscore top, as we talked about previously. And that should be good to go. So if you go back now to main activity, we'll find that the dialog type is now fixed and delete database is working fine. Add activity and search activity, we still need to add those in future videos, so that's why they're highlighted in red. So that's it. That's main activity done. I'll see you in the next video.